All right, welcome everyone. Welcome to episode 15 of the Metaverse Nomads. I'm Jesse, also known as Whitticus, and I've got the usual suspects with me here, Ray, Banjo, Bonafide, Ultra, and Fancy Hat. And I've got two special guests with us also, representing other guilds, IA and AEP. We've got Prometheus and Christian. Welcome, guys. So today, we actually had a special guest. We were supposed to have a guest with us who we're going to have on next weekend. But as all things change within the metaverse, there was a bit of news that caused us to pause for a moment and decide that it was probably good to have a conversation about some of the things that we see developing. So that's really what this is about. It's an opportunity for each of us to kind of weigh in as some of the leaders within the community and leaders of guilds, and also to hear from those of you that are watching as viewers that are also leaders of guilds and those that are a part of guilds and a part of the Star Atlas community. So with that, first, guys, how are you?
It's a bumpy week for myself, but we're here and I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. Prometheus, good to have you on the show, man.
Thanks. Yes, I don't join many shows, but very glad to be here. Listen to you guys a lot. It's you're doing a great show. Thank you.
Excellent.
Thank you.
And you are as well with building a fine guild over there for sure. You guys have also, not only that, but you and Funcracker have been big contributors for quite some time to the growth of the Star Atlas Discord. So thank you for your contribution there as well. And Christian, you have been around the community for quite some time, and you've got an incredibly large and productive guild going on over there. Thanks for being on the show with us here today.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. So guys, I'm going to pull up a couple slides. And again, the idea here is kind of our own version of a town hall. This is really an opportunity for us to, as the people, you know, the saying power to the people. Well, the people have gathered and we just want to have a discussion about some things and that relate to Star Atlas and the growth of the metaverse as a whole. We are the Metaverse Nomads. And as a part of that, you know, we have taken an interest, and the reason we actually named ourselves that is we've taken an interest in what we see growing within the metaverse as a whole. Things are really going to begin to change rapidly, especially now you see big players coming into the space. But it's also up to all of us together, those that are contributing to the metaverse, to be able to dictate where it grows to and what it turns into. So these kinds of conversations are actually quite important. And so the big news, of course, here is that there was a Bloomberg announcement of a record sized deal in the world of NFT gaming. The club, which is a guild within Star Atlas, spends $3 million on NFT ships from the Star Atlas game. So we're here to kind of talk about what we think of that. And so over the past couple of days, what kind of took place within the foundation room of the Star Atlas Discord was I posed a question. So I basically said thus far, and I am in agreement because we got news that there was going to be some delays, and delays happen. So I basically stated that I'm pretty pleased with the choices that Star Atlas has made and the development progress, and that delays happen. And I'm confident that they're for the right reasons. However, one thing that stands out that raises questions of integrity is side room deals. Does Star Atlas need to raise capital that the current ship sales don't address? If power to the people is truly the charter, then how is it fitting to make deals that negate the decentralization of assets for the benefit of all. 12 commanderships pre-sale to a single guild. I have a very strong suspicion that decision would not have passed the DAO vote, which in my opinion should be the litmus test. So my question was, what am I missing here? How did this take place and how is this a justifiable action? And I'm leaving room for sharing something that I'm just not getting, even though it all just does not feel right. So that's kind of what triggered a whole series of events and conversations across a lot of guilds and also throughout the community as a whole. Now, I think the best place to start here, as I mentioned, we are the Metaverse Nomads, but what stands out to me is the question, well, what exactly is the metaverse? Because all of us that show up here as the Metaverse Nomads on a weekly basis, it's not just specifically about gaming, although we're gamers from the word go, but it's also about what's being created in the metaverse. So what exactly is the metaverse? And I know all of you guys here will probably have different opinions about what it is and what's developing. And we've seen a lot of people take stabs at it recently in the news after Facebook's announcement. But for me, one of the things that I've seen that I think stands out is that it's a hyper-real alternative world to coexist in. And what that means to me is that we're already in a shift where the value that we each place on digital goods versus physical goods is starting to weigh differently. We're starting to see people spend millions of dollars on in-game virtual assets, whether they're NFTs, whether it's land, whether it's ships, as we just saw here. And that's going to continue to happen over time. Now, the thing that all of us that are taking part in this industry should potentially be concerned about is the fact that it's not just independent companies like Star Atlas that are going this direction. We saw in the news that Meta, nearly $1 trillion company, Facebook, is pumping billions of dollars to go in that direction. But they're not the only one. These big five all have massive initiatives that they want to stake their claim in the metaverse. And the challenge with this, even though they're 23% of the S&P 500, that's $9 trillion that these companies represent, and they want the metaverse. The challenge is it won't be decentralized if they get it. We won't have a voice, we won't have a vote, and we will become the product, okay? So again, the thing that's important to us is decentralization. And as a part of decentralization, that's where the whole themes that you see companies springing up with, and companies like even Gala Games, we're giving gaming back to the gamers. And Star Atlas, who goes by that tagline, power to the people, stick it to the man. The thing about this is when I hear a company say this, it is something that I take serious because this is not a simple term to just throw around. It has a very decorated history going back to the 60s when people were speaking out in rebellion against oppression of any kind, whether it was older generations or protesting about ruling classes. So if you're going to use power to the people, you kind of have to own that and be about the people. So that brings us to the question, is Star Atlas the people's champion? There's lots of things that I like about what Star Atlas has done, and I know all of you have as well. This whole community does. But also, we are the people, so therefore the people need to have a voice in this. Star Atlas has done amazing things. They talk about governance. They talk about transparency. They talk about building this together. They have a fantastic Discord. They've got town halls where we actually get to ask questions. There's very few communities do that. And we have direct access and contact to the executive team. These are all huge pluses that really got me to jump in favor of and support what was being built here. They've got a 42-page white paper where they talk about the plans for unfolding the platform into the metaverse and looking into a future where they aren't the ones in control of it, and they're going to hand that over to governance. And there's also a 38-page economic paper that talks about that foundation. And all of these things only work if they are done fairly. Otherwise, it will be stacked in the favor of someone that becomes another controlling body, becomes another dominant force, another IOI, to use the Ready Player One term. So where does that bring us? That brings us to a place where Star Atlas is about power to the people. They're about governance, transparency, and building together. Well, a while back, and I'm sure some of you, because we've seen mention of this within the Discord itself, there was something that was a little concerning. When we look at the Polis and Atlas allocations, we can see that 3.5% are dedicated to we the people. 22.5% are dedicated to private, anonymous people. That's influence that we don't know who they are. There's rewards and emissions. However, when you look at the actual chart, the balance comes in favor of the public versus private in about the year 24 or 25. That's a long staging area for someone in the private sector to be able to gain dominance and dictate what they essentially want. And that becomes the governance. Governance has little value unless it's in proper representation of the people. So just 2 more slides here before we actually jump into conversation. I wanted to use this to set the stage because there's a bigger picture at play here, not just simply that we're playing a game in Star Atlas and there's being side room or back room deals being done without the common knowledge of the community as a whole. A month or so ago in October, we saw that there was an announcement of YGG and Star Atlas forming a partnership. It's only strange to me because YGG is a gaming guild. And there's plenty of other guilds. Guild representation here, where all of the guilds that I know that are represented right here had more than $1 million already invested. It wasn't a promise of down the road. So why the favor, why the cronyism to friendships that they're staging as, hey, pay attention to this, when there's opportunity to do that amongst other guilds that are also supporting you, not only equally, but even more so. And of course, that brings us to just this past couple of days with the announcement of this deal with the club. And in that deal, it was mentioned that $3 million, and of course, that is now seemingly the amount to get you in the game where there should not be any amount. There's no reason for it. But the thing that was most striking here is that there were 12 commanderships. And when those 12 commanderships are sold, that means that the rest of the guilds need to scramble at market price or greater for the remainder of them. So the scales have already been tipped in favor of someone else in what is supposed to be a game where we all come together on equal ground, or what you can purchase through the marketplace. That's not always equal. So that's what we're here to talk about today. And it is concerning. And we, the people, have the opportunity to share our thoughts, ideas, and opinions about it. This is not at all a witch hunt. I absolutely believe that Star Atlas does amazing things. And I know the rest of us here do as well. This is about what can we share as our thoughts, ideas, and opinions to perhaps steer things back on course so that we can move forward with trust that we are all collectively building this for the right reasons. So with that, one other slide here. Fancy shared a bit of information since he often pulls things from us here. There's a $45 million in in-game assets across the 3 factions right now. And that's not even include tokens. So that's a lot. And I know you guys can't read this, but this is a week's growth. MUD grew by 4 million, it looks like. Is it 4 million? Yeah. We saw another, and then we saw about 2 to 3 for ONI. And we saw about another 3 and some change for Ooster. So there's a lot of money coming into the space. The community is growing, which also raises the question. It's like, why did Star Atlas do this deal? Because there seems to be enough happening within the marketplace. And if not, then there should be another method for offering up collectively to the community to raise additional funds if that is in fact the issue. So a roundtable, whoever wants to jump in first, my question to you, is this a deal that Star Atlas should have made?
I'll give it a go first, Jesse. I think everyone knew that there was some degree of private sales going on. I think most of us understood that there was just token sales. And there's been some questions going on, months now about what that looked like. And the answers have always been somewhat opaque in respect to the people who are actually doing the private sales. And we know that the private sales of tokens, there's an escrow that gets released over time, so the impact isn't as big. However, there is a concern that people who may not be playing the game may have an advantage in the game, or there might be an unfair advantage. And now it's kind of proven that there's an unfair advantage provided to people who are investing large sums of money, which to me is the antithesis of what I thought this game was setting out to achieve. It was kind of setting a fair chessboard where all the pieces had equal access to the board. And now we know that that's not the case.
Absolutely. Anyone else?
Yeah, we kind of covered the topic of whales getting in hypothetically when it came to the land sale and how that might have taken shape, because there was some pushback or concern about someone having a lot of money whether you're an investor with VCs or just an individual who has that much to just throw down to buy land. And if it was going to be a Dutch auction, then there would be people who have more and would be able to obtain more assets in game than others. And that's just the nature of the world we live in. There's people with more and people with less. But when it came to this ship sale, I wasn't surprised. I did have to think about it because of YGG already coming into the space and having a public partnership announced with $1 million. And I remember us having conversations in the background, not knowing until after I saw the interview with DNN. Just the other day, there was an interview done, and Wagner talked about the ability for anyone potentially to come and make this type of portfolio investment, and how it seemed like it was a normal thing. But I wasn't aware of that, and I'm pretty sure that there's many millions of dollars that would have taken advantage of this opportunity if they knew beforehand as well. And maybe it only came down to just asking. Maybe all anyone ever had to do was ask, and then you were able to do it. Again, it's not that much of a shock, but it does put a lot of people at a disadvantage, like we just finished talking about, when the game is ready to play for what it's worth, the mini game, and then moving onwards from that point, we're going to have people who have a lot beforehand, but when we thought everyone was going to be able to get their shot at buying it off the market when they were released. So, yeah.
I mean, for me, it's always about decentralization. So, I mean, we have a open market that would be fair, that works, where things are selling out all the time. I don't think we need to do private sales or unfairly allow for the potential of monopolies to occur in the future.
Agreed. Yeah. So, Prometheus, I have no doubt that there's probably been dialogue within your own guild, and also feel free to share some of your own thoughts. When you had actually read this, was there anything that came to mind for you?
Sure, thanks. So, going back to the bigger picture first, there was already a shift in Star Atlas's approach to decentralized nature of the game. Because if you go back to white paper, so you showed slides from Econ paper. If you go back to white paper, it had a very different distribution of tokens. And you guys were talking about this months ago, I think. Mm-hmm. So there was already a shift. And yeah, there were private sales before. Nobody is surprised that there were private sales for tokens. Mm-hmm. In the guild, we were saying everything that happens before IDO stays before IDO, mm-hmm. comparison to Vegas. Now, these new sales are interesting because, in part, I think this 3 million deal is actually only one of the deals. To me, when we started to look at the blockchain, at the distribution that sends those 12 C9 ships to that wallet, same transaction actually had 6 more distributions to 6 other wallets of smaller number of ships. So I'm not sure even if 3 million gets you through the door, because with YGG it looked like one did. We of course didn't know about entry requirements. Because it wasn't public. I don't know how those deals are set up in general, but our relationship is that even if such deal is public, we don't feel it's the right thing for us as a corporation to engage in such deal, because it breaks the balance of exactly what you were talking about, of all people being equal on pioneers in this new metaverse. Now we are okay, there are people who can pull more money together and they're better pioneers. It just doesn't feel right. Yes, different people have different assets, and there is a huge distribution of prices on ships that should accommodate all of the kinds of people. But this C9 specifically, for example, just talking about one sale, Like nobody got on USDC market C9 at that origination tranche price. Like it wasn't possible, price never got there. Everybody who was on the sale knows it. So saying that there are no discounts by selling ships at that first origination price is already kind of not true, because nobody on the open market got ships at that price. But also, like, there are different kinds of private sales. So for example, there were poster sales that club guys mentioned, and I'm fine actually with private sales there. I'll tell you why. Because at that time, everybody could buy posters. All posters were at the same price, unlimited supply. You have a time window. It was going down to like 1 hour, I think, in the end. Still, you have 1 hour. If you have capital you want to deploy, you can buy those posters. Everybody's on the same level field. You have private deal, okay, you just don't play with those getting in the time window, but time window is known. It's not like it's surprise that you need to monitor everything real time. It's fair in my view, like assuming they didn't get discounts to those public poster prices, which I'm not sure really, because those deals were not made public. But in general, it looks, those deals are fine-ish to me. Now,
Right.
this new one, when it's just somebody gets assets at prices not available to anybody playing the game fairly, it's just, that doesn't feel right to me.
Yeah, that makes sense. With the poster sale, that's still in the very early speculative stage. And yeah, there's a lot of things that can be done there. And the truth is the company doesn't even have any idea if they're going to be able to raise the capital at that point to be able to do the things they need to do. So I could see a lot of things happening in that space. But once the marketplace opens up, I think that there should be a standard by which things take place. You know, and as I mentioned in that initial comment where I asked the question, as I said, I strongly think that if this had gone to a DAO vote, it would have never passed, and that should be the filter through which decisions like this are run. So with that, Christian, you're on here with us. Any thoughts? I know that you have gotten to some of this news a little bit later, but just based on what you've heard thus far, any thoughts that you have about this?
Well, I will start by just saying that just like you confirmed, I'm here from the very beginning. I had the pleasure to deal with all kinds of different people, all kinds of different communities, venture capitalists, companies, without overreacting, probably more than 50 meetings with different communities so far. And I even had a meeting with Vlad very early on. I know very well that he's early investor before nearly anybody else. And he had a chance to make this deal with the Staratus developers to buy out the posters and to be one of the early investors. And in my point of view, this is something normal in business. When you're able to enter so early in any startup, you are always going to get some kind of a benefit. Doesn't matter if it's monetary or just tokens or ships or whatever, right? This is their business and their own deals. But I just want to make this point that I understand that everybody's here with the thoughts that this will be decentralized and fair, equal, whatever that means. Whatever, everybody understand those things in different way. For example, you cannot have a decentralized system if you do not build decentralized system. Who are going to build it? The Staratus team? I personally don't think that it's only their responsibility to put all of their effort in this decentralization. It's our responsibility as well. For example, the Interstellar Alliance, with the help of our developers, created a decentralized DEX. which is very useful. I know that a lot of people are using it, and that's really great. But for example, someone from the community a couple of days ago reported it for a phishing scam, so we needed to fix this issue the same day. Of course, I'm not angry about it. I'm actually grateful because this showed us that there is bad actors out there that do not really care about the community itself, and they're just wanting to mess the rest of the communities for whatever reason, right? So we fixed that issue, but it's obvious that things happen, right? So we cannot expect everything to be fair and everything to be equal. Now, the moment that money became the primary issue with the metaverse, and the bigger investors came in and they decide, okay, we'll be investing, we believe in this project, the fairness and the equality disappear. We cannot live in some kind of fantasy world where we do not need to expect that the startups team do not need millions and I mean hundreds of millions of dollars in order to sustain this development. They have like 200 people that are working for them every month, so they need to pay those salaries. They want to have this team to be 400 people. This is a lot of money. I want everybody to understand it's not something easy. So I understand that they're trying to make all kind of different deals behind the scenes. And I'll just give you one example. Like half a year ago, some information came to me that one of the bigger communities that are partnering with the Staratos community developers are trying to make a deal which pretty much was going to give them the rights to have a monopoly on like some ship that only they can build, or a resource that they are the only suppliers to this resource. So I straight away go to the Staratos team and to Michael, and I had very serious conversation with him. I told him, look, we are all investors here, right? So we cannot just hand over to some community complete monopoly on certain assets. So understand that those investors need to get some kind of privileges, like or just bonuses for their early investments, but we cannot give such monopolies. So what he told me that he had no idea that this is actually happening, right? So there is a lot of people working for them. So people just having communication with all kinds of different communities, and not everything goes to the highest order that can check the information and what is going on. So he made sure that the information that I give him is the correct one. He made sure that everything is understood. He come back to me and he told me, yes, there was some kind of overreach happening, and he apologized. He made sure that this never happened again, right? So I told him, just make sure that everything is as fair as possible. Just equality and absolute fairness, that would be impossible, but as fair as possible, this is something possible, right? And I also want to point out that for example, the people who made those early investments, like $500,000 or millions of dollars, like Vlad did, he was having the better judgment that this project will be a lot more important than most people think, and that's why he's one of the 4 people who bought all of the posters. And the Staratos team already confirmed that the people who bought all the posters will get some kind of a privilege for this risk that they're taking. And I understand that it's not looking good that you can buy such a big amount of ships off the counter, like pricey companies are, selling their actions or stocks or whatever, just options. But I really do think that this is not the biggest deal that is happening behind the scene, and there is a lot of things that we do not know. Right. And I just want everybody to be, to stay level-headed and to understand that this is just business. And if we want to have this metaverse, first, big investors need to invest in the company in order to build it. Because we personally, I don't know how many assets others are buying. I personally, and the Interstellar Alliance, we don't take those measurements because we don't really think that it's necessary to do so. When we all have the DAOs, everybody will be able to see who has more, right, or who has less, or whatever. I'm not really concerned about those things because I'm watching the bigger picture here. I'm well aware, and from the conversation that I'm having, multi-billion dollars of companies are working on this project. I want everybody to think very seriously on this. What will happen in the future when company decide, okay, we'll put $100 million or $500 million into this Star Atlas metaverse, and they decide to buy huge amount of ships, huge amount of tokens, and you wake up one day and you see the tokens 1,000% up or something like that for the ships.
I'd like to go back to what you said about the leaderboards and how we're going to be able to see all of this eventually. One of my main problems with that article is it claims to be the biggest, but there's so much money in this game that we have no idea really until it all actually shows up on the leaderboard. I'd be happy to read about like news articles when it's actually official and you can see and people deserve that. Yeah, that's my input.
Another thought that I have about that is that I understand your point that this is a private company, and the truth is they are free to do whatever they want. However, thus far, the funding has come from individuals like you and like me and like the rest of us on here. We have helped to fund this from the start. And the thing that's important to me is that a company's words match their actions. And so I don't expect it to, when we talk about fairness, there's going to be times where people don't know how to use the DEX. They're going to miss out on sales. But you know what? They had access to it the same way that everyone else did. And so if it is an issue of money, then the proper thing in my belief is that make it known. Utilize the transparency. That's what is talked about, is that we are a transparent company and we share things with you as things develop. So if that's the case, make it available across the board. So I'm not looking for pie in the sky fairness in that regard, but I do expect a company to do what they say they're going to do. And to me, that's the greater question. It's not a matter of this one deal, because like you said, there are definitely deals that are being done that this one just happened to make Bloomberg. That's the reason we're talking about it.
I'm sure, and I understand completely what you're telling. I just want to make sure that everyone don't really overreact about this, because just like I say, the only reason that we're talking about it because we saw it. For example, nobody's talking about how much FTX holds of the token, etc. So just I want everybody to understand that no, not everything will go our way.
No, I think you're. Go ahead.
So we just need to make sure that whatever we are doing is for the betterment of the community side. Because when it comes to the development, we don't really develop anything for the metaverse that much. We are making these DEX. The DEX that we released, it was one of the first part of the decentralization that we are trying to make. And I already know about different projects that are creating tools and services that can be purchased by the Star Atlas team and just integrate it in their product in the future. So this is what I'm recommending everyone is to just build tools, services, whatever you can make in order to expand the entire community and to focus on growth. Because if we focus on growth, eventually so much money will come to the space that it will not going to look like, that community managed to get a little bit more ships than the rest, but it will be like a drop in the sea compared to what exactly is happening on the grander scale.
I think it's also it's less necessarily about the money. Here's honestly what I want. If I had the opportunity to speak for myself, these are my own selfish thoughts. I've invested a lot of personal time and a lot of money, more than most within Star Atlas. I just want to know that I have the same opportunity as others. If it's presented, I would like to also be able to make sure that I can secure ships, not just for myself, but for my guild and for Rome. Over the past month, we've doubled in size as we brought in a lot of people from Argentina and Venezuela and other developing countries where, you know what, not a lot of them are going to be able to show up and buy a tremendous amount of assets, but together they can pool their resources. So to me, if the idea is to raise a tremendous amount of money, then the first thing that should be focused on is the guild DAO. That way it gives people the opportunity to pool their resources and more money will flow into the project. Now, if I'm looking at building tools and things like that later down the road, I'm more hesitant to do that if I don't know the lay of the land or that my effort is going to be recognized the same way equally as others are. Because if the deck is completely stacked against me, I don't know if I want to put my effort into it. So while, yes, I agree that this is not a time for people to go overboard with reaction, it is a time for people to speak up and say, hey, this is what we understood. If we're wrong, help us understand what the new model is. And then we can choose for ourselves how we want to participate.
Yeah. I think the biggest mistake that the Staratos team made was they didn't focus on the transparency and early on to think what kind of benefits those people who hold all of the posters will have. This was able to be avoided very easily if just they were focusing on this on the start. But I think that they put a lot of targets too early, so they were pressured from outside when it comes to development timing and all of those schedules that they're putting, but they are not ready. I didn't really expect that even from the beginning that they will be able to deliver right on their dates. So I do understand the delays and that they are not doing everything the right way, right? Because they are just a new team. They're still building. But I also want to say something when it comes to the DAO. The Interstellar Alliance was one of the first communities. I think in the Staratos community, we were the first one that made a separate DAO. And I just want to point out that I'm pretty sure that if more people are creating this type of DAOs separately from the Staratos developers, they are putting like a backup one in case that something doesn't go well as everybody's thinking, right? We're expecting a DAO, but maybe we're not going to get DAO right away. So I think that it's a good idea everybody to have a backup one on this.
Just to circle back to something that Jesse said, I think we all want the game to be successful. We want the injection of cash into the system because we know that lifts the value of our assets, our Atlas, our Polis, our ships, and everything else. But I think everything in my mind circles back to fair playing board. And even within the chat, some people are saying, we don't mind the money being spent. Just spend it on the open market like everybody else. Because at the end of the day, whether that money's coming in right now, it goes right to the Star Atlas dev team. We understand that. But if it's out on the open market, then it's really growing the community and not just driving the company. And we understand that the company has costs. And I agree with Christian on the transparency. If they had put something like this out as a proposal before kind of briefly talking about it on a podcast and then having it show up on Bloomberg, I think the community would have taken it a little bit differently. But we already have people in Rome who didn't get the C9s they wanted because there was so few and the competition was too fierce and the systems just weren't as quick as that we needed them to be. Now, what happens to C11s? Now we've got this greater competition for C11s, but you've got this guild, and it's not even about who the guild is. It's more about what happened, who already have their advantage. Well, when we have a bunch of people fighting and paying more for ships that are left remaining.
I just wanted to say, I was going to say before this comment came up with Suhail, I'm sorry if I messed up your name, that Michael did say he was going to post an official statement about this. It just hasn't happened yet, and I'm glad that one of the mods, besides Prometheus, but one of the mods did come out to say that they are double checking, and it will come out eventually sometime today.
Yeah, I mean, if it airs live, we'll bring that up.
Yeah, this is a brand new space, and this is a big opportunity for things to go in a lot of different directions. And I think, I mean, it's not about bashing any devs or anything like that, but it's important for the community to speak out in situations like this and make it very clear of what the people, the decentralized metaverse community is going to want to happen in these situations going forward. Going back to my man Valerius from the chat a little while ago, made this great comment. What it does is tell guilds, if you actually want to succeed in this game as a DAC, you must have private meeting. You must have a private meeting with Star Atlas, or you will always be outgunned by the guys that do. And that is very important. I mean, we don't want all of us. I mean, we could have, positioned ourselves to do a back deal as well. But why would we want to do that when we could go on an open market and buy it in a decentralized format?
Yeah, and just to add on to that, great point, great comment. And Star Atlas is a game of guilds, more so than just you as an individual player, which it is also that type of game. You can come in with a $20 ship and carve your trailblaze your own path into the stars and build from there. Right? There's a zero to hero story in us all if we are with the guild or not. But every game needs players. And if the foundation of players and the majority of players are going to be those who cannot afford, then how does it look to them? Maybe it's not even something on their radar or something they even care about. Like I'm talking in general with a lot of different types of situations here. I'm just taking more of like the 50,000 foot view, helicopter view here, where money is definitely part of the equation. But for a game to be successful, you need those daily active players. And for what it's worth, if what's going to incentivize people right out the gate is just a return on whatever you bought, then you'll have people in the ecosystem. But we're talking on a level of transparency that we're millions of dollars worth of ships, and granted, down the line, we're going to have hundreds of millions of dollars, $500 million, right? Even into the billions. We're going to have guilds that were already established in Eve or Star Citizen that come out of the woodworks. There's a lot of people who haven't registered on their factions yet. And the leaderboards aren't even up, like Fancy said. So, kudos to the team for doing everything that they've done so far. And, I was there before posters were even a thing to buy. And, I considered myself buying the full tier up until 5. But again, the risk was there for a project to either become successful or not, and everyone came along and did what they did up until now. I just think that it does need to be something that's on the market for everyone to buy. I don't mind there being backroom deals, but it should have been something. It's a touchy subject in the sense that there's going to be money that the project can make to help support it itself. It's just that there's different ways to do that, and if the majority of the community speaks out in a way that is more for everyone's interest rather than their own personal guilds or investors' goals, by doing deals behind the scene, then or even in public, right? Even if it was mentioned, right? Let's say nothing was a secret and everything was just public and anyone can do this. Does it still mean that it should happen? Because now we have people needing to reach out to get that leg up. If you had those millions of dollars worth of deals that could be had.
So I have a question for the group. We've heard Wagner talk about the future of the game and how everything will be decentralized and everything will be voted on. Do you think that this would have passed the governance votes? With the greater community, all of us are very active on the Discord. We're all very involved with the game, and we try our best to understand every little piece of it. Within the future state of a governance vote, do you think this would have passed?
I don't think there's a chance. I don't think here's the question. We're thinking about taking $3 million from a guild and giving them pre-sale access to ships before everyone else gets it. Other than that guild, who's going to vote yes to that?
And I think Ray said it earlier. This is a game of guilds, right? So what guild is going to vote for a large percentage of a certain type of resource to be given to another guild? I mean, if it's thrown out there to the public and it's a free for all and it's a fair system, that we're all about that, right? But nobody wants to see the other guy given an advantage. Like Jesse said earlier, nobody wants to see the guy sitting down at the chessboard across from you having 2 queens in the beginning.
Yeah, and we're talking from the standpoint of being gamers, right? So that competitive, it's not about we want everyone else to suffer and not have what we have, right? If this is going to be a simulation of the real world, there's going to be haves and have-nots, and this is just the natural state of the world, and unfortunately, that this is how it is. And when we're talking about business, that's a whole other world. But now, it's not just a business; it's a game, right? And it's going to be something that's decentralized the longer time goes on. So, in my opinion, having the DAC built out to its full capacity for voting simply would be the best route to take after this, but even before this even happened, because the community should have a voice, and it shouldn't be just on platforms that we all create, which we do promote. Everyone should be out there creating their own things, decentralized or not, tools that help people, platforms that people could speak their voice on, like this one that we host every Sunday. So for as much as people will build and help decentralize the space of Star Atlas, it's really going to come down to the team themselves building what they said they are going to build, which is going to help facilitate decentralization of everything, of the game, but also things that we're going to need to decide on when it comes to a vote, and this could be the beginning of that.
Yeah, so personal finance and buying on the market is pretty much the game while we are waiting at the moment. That was a great comment brought up, and unless backroom deals are part of that game, then I wouldn't vote for that either.
Christian or Prometheus, any thoughts?
For sure, it doesn't look good. For sure, it doesn't look good. I would not agree for something like this to happen, but my standpoint is that I do understand that for people who decide to buy out those posters need to get some kind of special treatment, right? They get the biggest risk out of everybody here. So I do understand that they need to have some kind of a, not advantage, but like privilege when they want to buy assets. Especially if they're willing to invest even millions and millions of dollars, and they're even willing to take even more risk than they were taking early on.
Prometheus?
Christian, so you already twice said that you think that this early access is really a reward for posters. Do you have an information on that? Because that's really the first time I hear that.
This is just my observation, because the Star Atlas team already said that there will be later on some very big rewards for the people who bought out of those posters. And I had a talk with some of the representatives from the coup, and the only people who know exactly what is happening is Vlad, who actually owns those posters, and he's in the conversation with the developers behind Star Atlas. So I cannot really say, yes, this is a fact that I'm saying. This is just my point of view, so I can explain it to myself. What I need to do in order to be able to get this access. Is it just having $3 million, or is it purchasing something very unique? And this NFT, if we see the entire collection as an NFT, is this NFT giving you the right to buy out of those ships prior everybody else? Maybe, I don't know, but it makes sense, right?
It does make sense, but based on DNN interview, it sounded like if you say, I have $3 million, I want to do a private deal with you, you get those ships. So it did not sound like it's a poster reward. That's why I'm asking, because you go back to posters.
What you're saying also makes sense. There was no confirmation of this or something like this. There was just, if you have $3 million, you can get it. Maybe it's not like that. We do not know. We can just speculate.
It's probably worth sharing for the people who are listening in and still trying to figure out what happened. Jesse, can you kind of just share the what they got out of the deal that has people such up in arms?
Yeah, so the short of it, and I'll bring this back up here, just again as a point of reference, is that there was a Bloomberg announcement, a press release of a record deal in the world of NFT gaming that the club, which is a guild within the Star Atlas community, spent $3 million on NFT ships from the Star Atlas game. And while, and also, by the way, there's another note in here where it says that they already have a confirmed asset holding of over 6 million, not included in the purchase. If these guys even had 60 million, that's, if they did it through normal and fair channels, then so be it. That's a part of the process, and I'm all in support of that. The great concern here also, I think additionally more than anything else, is the fact that it suggests that they have been pre-sold 12 commander ships prior to the sale, meaning like they couldn't have them in their wallets yet because they haven't been given out, but they have those in holding or in waiting, and that takes away from the available supply, which heavily tilts the favor in their direction versus other guilds and individuals that have to then scramble to gather the remaining ships, and who knows at what price. So yeah, this is the conversation we're having.
Yeah, thanks for
Before
that.
you're
There was
before
people
you're
in
done,
chat talking about it. That's why I was asking you to say it again.
Sure.
Before you're done, Jesse, can you explain like how we're calculating the total number of ships and why we believe that it's such a big percentage?
Sure. So here's what we know so far. The highest ship tier that has been made available through the marketplace thus far are capital ships. And those capital ships, there's been 2 of them, and they've been in somewhere in the neighborhood of about $30,000 to $32,000, something like that. We do know that the commander class, which is a larger ship, is going to be in the range of $80,000 to $100,000. Now, the capital ships, there were roughly 200 or less than 200 of each. So if we scale up according to what we have seen the different tiers, that suggests that there's probably going to be less than 100 commander ships. And since there's 2 commander ships, that means there's probably going to be 30 to 40 each of these. So this particular ship in general, the C11, we don't know how many, but it's going to be a small number. So if you already commit 12 commander ships to a single guild, that leaves every other guild throughout the Star Atlas community scrambling for what remains. That's the significance of this.
Mm-hmm. What I think is interesting is there are people who feel the way we do, and there are people who are being a little bit more forgiving to Star Atlas and calling this the way the game is played. And it's interesting that there is such a divide. I think we all have a healthy desire and appreciation and hope that the game is successful. But as people have already shared, or Jesse already shared at the beginning, we're kind of a group that calls it out when we see it. As much as we love the product that we're into, we want to help make sure that the game is successful and fair to everybody.
Absolutely. So that raises a question, and the next question is, so here we are, we're still waiting for a statement from the company. And in some ways, the company very well may be waiting to find out more about what the community thinks of it. So the question I'd like to hear from different folks is, what should happen now? How should this be resolved? What is the best action going forward to whether it's reestablish or if there's been any trust that's lost? In some ways, there has been for me. But what is the road forward from here? What is the best foot forward to resolve this?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is having some operational DAO that Star Atlas creates, and it could simply just be for voting, and it could be said in the small print that although the vote might be in or not in favor of a particular proposal, it's not going to be set in stone, right? But it should be something that is taken into a consideration via a proposal in a DAO. Of what the community's temperature is on whatever is happening, or that happened before or is to come. That would be fantastic to see. A lot of DAOs are just that, right? It's just for voting purposes. So a lot of people create DAOs, and people who don't know anything really about DAOs, they just, that's really the extent of DAOs, and an accumulation of funds for a treasury to be used on some in-game assets or land when it comes to NFT gaming. But that would be, I would like to see that. And when it comes to the ability to gather money from wherever and just reach out to Star Atlas, and also being included in some of these backdoor deals, because if this is the case, then this is the route everyone should take to position themselves in a manner that's going to be better off than others, if we're talking about the competitiveness of the game itself and wanting to be as productive and efficient with your time and energy and resources compared to others. Or even not in comparison to others, just for your own. I'd like to be the most efficient, the most effective, and the most diligent with my time and all its resources. So this would be the clear-cut path for me to take next. And again, it might have been something that was always possible, but it wasn't as clear as day, to my knowledge, that anyone can just do that. And I only figured this out after the interview that Wagner had, when he talked about saying, yeah, if anyone out there wants to create a portfolio that is like what the club did, you can do that. And so, yeah.
My thoughts on it is that, I mean, I don't know how much you can do. I would look to reverse the issue with the commanderships. They haven't been dropped yet, so it's not a matter of, hey, if that part of the deal's undone, then offer them that part back. And here's the reason I don't like backroom deals, because when you play a game, if that's what this is, everyone should know the rules of the game. You should know the rules of engagement. And so that should be established up front. And however, if we're trying to do something here, which is to build a virtual economy that's going to last, you're going to get more people interested in doing it if they understand the rules and they feel like it's a level playing field. If the goal for Star Atlas is to raise funds beyond what they can raise through the existing means, then look for a more creative way to do that makes it fair. Now, understand also there was the mention of there being posters and the early adopters that took the risk and looking for a way to reward them. I think that there are ways that you can do that does not disrupt the integrity of the system. And so everything should go through the marketplace. That's going to make for a much more healthy economy, and it's going to make the economy grow and become established more quickly. There are other ways to solve capital raises if that is in fact something that is needed. That's my thought.
Yeah, if I were to give my perspective on that, I think you have to find some way to remove the capital ship issue. I mean, that's an obvious unfairness to me. And it seems to me with their private token sales, they already had a system in place for an escrow system where it didn't start earning until it was staked for a certain period of time. And it seems to me that any injection of funds into the system should come with that kind of deal, because at the end of the day, it's about the long-term health of the system and not a competitive advantage, right? Which I totally am on board with long-term health of Star Atlas, totally not on board with unfair competitive advantages. And we all know the biggest guilds are working the game's afoot. We're playing, right? And this feels like, okay, well, now we have this other thing we need to contend with that gives us a power differential that we weren't ready for, especially when we have, and I'm sure the other guilds do as well, have people who are trying to buy these assets. I mean, we have people who want to buy C11s. We had people who lost out on C9s. So that right there makes it feel, there's a little bit of unfairness there. And I think if we were to go forward on this, we need to see some transparency on what the $3 million investment program looks like, and also some way to prevent the competitive advantage that it provides people who are investing.
I agree with this. When it comes to the ship and the ship sale that will happen now, I think the best way to resolve it is just put more ships for sale. Like, don't make I agree. Tens of thousands of people to fight for 50 ships. This is ridiculous, right? For example, I know a lot of people that wanted to buy C9, but their orders were just not taken when they put them on the decks. So I do understand that there is a lot of interest. So I don't really see the need to sell too little amount of ships when there is such a big demand, right? Maybe it's for just rarity and just to make it as less as possible so they can be as hard as possible to get. But I do think that maybe a little bit extra ships, maybe that will be the best way to solve it, because I don't really think that the best thing is to say to big investors that are having faith in the project, no, the community said that your $3 million or your prior early investments do not deserve any special treatment. This may be problematic for any future investors. So if we are watching in the long term, and someone want to invest $100 million in the future, and he'll be like, yeah, but if I invest that much money, the community will rip me apart, so I'm not going to do it.
That's since those ships, that class of ships, that whole tier hasn't even been released yet, that might actually be a possible option. I'm not sure. I wanted to go back to this comment that somebody brought up a minute ago, because I think it gives a lot of perspective here, right? Most problems we have faced is things moving, being developed, rolled out at such a fast pace that information is not getting across to the relevant people and stakeholders in time for proper feedback, right? So all of us investing in this game, we're not able always to get our perspective back to the devs quick enough while they're making these fast decisions. And I think that that's just going to be a part of the process. But one of the things I like about the Star Atlas team is that they've been very responsive to the community in the past, and they've made the changes that were necessary when the community, got in arms about different topics that came up. And I think that there's all the opportunity in the world for them to do the same here.
And I just want to reaffirm, because it looks like within the chat there's a little bit of a back and forth going on. This isn't about the guild. Well, I don't really care what guild it was. So it's not about, defending yourself as your guild or your guild leader or repping yourselves. If it was the next guild over, we would still be having the same conversation. So to me, this is completely irrespective of the guild that made the deal.
And the truth is, as a guild, for the nature of what I want the game and the metaverse and everything to be, I personally don't even want that deal for us as Rome. If we had the avenue to be able to do that, I think it interrupts the spirit of what is being created here. I want for us to be a dominant guild, but I want us to earn it and do it through the same means that everyone else is able to do it.
Fair playing field.
I think the issue is it's not about the money. It's not the issue that they got the ships or there's backroom deals. It's that you can't say power to the people and then turn around and be like, hey, here's some ships for a little bit of money or for some money. It's just the fact that when you say power to the people, everybody should have a chance to be, or should be given this chance to do it, whether you want to or not. To the individual, because there are people. This is crypto. $3 million is a drop in the bucket to a lot of people, especially in the next few months. I'm pretty sure a lot of people can drop $10, $20 million depending on how early in crypto you've been. You can easily drop $3 million without a problem. And now imagine with the DAO system in play, now you can have, as Jesse was saying, a lot of people that can barely afford $10, $20. Now, if you have 10, 20,000, 30,000 of them putting in $10, $20, they can easily buy a couple of these ships without a problem. It's not that hard. It's just the thing that's upsetting for most people is that it wasn't fair because it was only given to one guild, or it was only given to one group of people versus opening up to everybody to give them a chance to say, yes, we want to do this as well, or no, we don't want to. We don't feel like we can't afford it or we can't. It's not worth it for us at this time.
I agree with this. I think they just needed to have this transparency and everything much more better planned early on, and everything was going to be resolved much more easily. And I was expecting that stuff like this will happen like months and months ago, and this is one of the reasons that I created the Interstellar Alliance as one DAC, which will be like the umbrella for multiple different communities, right? And separately of that, we created the United Metaverse Organizations, which is organization like the United Nations we have today, which contains more than dozens of different communities at the moment. And I knew very well that, just like you say, if we have tens of thousands of people who don't have that much, but they all work together, we can create our own level playing field, and we can all work together, and we can be like having bigger chance to counteract any bigger fishes in the sea. Let's say it like this. And that was my idea with everything that we were working on the past 6 months. I think this is the best way we can counteract, and communications like the one that we are having now, we're having it every single week in the Sunday, and we have more than 15 representatives from different communities, and we are becoming like separate entity, which is making sure that whatever is happening, we can counter-react together, right? Because we are the community, not the investors. The investors that's it. They're just investors. And from GameStop, we know very well whoever was part of it.
Yeah.
Many people can band together and the entire world freaks out, right? So that was the idea, right? If we stay together and we just support our projects and not just say, I do not use this because someone else did it. No, if it's a good product and it's created by the community, people should use it.
I see comments here saying that 3 million invested in the open market, it would be such an insane effect on the market. And it's not really the case. Like Team already sold to with the people more like $60 million of ships. So this 3 million is just like 5% on top of that. It's not like club wouldn't invest those 3 million without that private deal. They can still go on the market if the supply that they got was put on the market together with all the other supplies. So it's not like it's impossible to get those ships. It's more about just preferential treatment that they got, and those 3 million on the table condition were not announced really before all of this happened. Like all of the C9 sale, for example, and that airdrop happened before public interviews where this was even mentioned. It's still not mentioned by Michael or anybody else from the team what are actual conditions apart from those 3 million on the table. Like, okay, if AFIA gathers 3 million, 5 million, what ships would we get? What land would we get? Maybe land is also part of those deals. Maybe there are some other conditions that we can get. I don't know, like Christian mentioned that there was a talk about separate resource for a guild. Well, it's just something that's completely game breaking. I don't know even how any game developer would consider anything like this in the first place. Like it shouldn't be anywhere close to the table.
Yeah, I completely agree with this. It was so ridiculous that when I learned about it, I straight away speak with Michael, and he himself had no idea what I'm talking about, right? So maybe it's the same case. Maybe just overreaction, or I don't know. Maybe it's. I doubt that the Coop will make such an announcement and the Bloomberg will make such a news about it. But I do think that maybe there is a lot of things that we do not know. And there is a lot of people who overreacted yesterday or the day before that. Even from my community, I saw that someone was kind of disrespectful when it comes to those things and the entire communications. And I had chat with them and I explained them, look, we don't really know what is going on, right? So it's better to get some kind of a clarification before we judge whoever, right? But if it's really this is the case, we need the transparency. We need to know how we can do it if we want ourselves to gather so much money and just to have those deals in the back end. I think that will actually improve the collaborations between the members of each community, because this is exactly what DAO is. It's really creating this spirit of cooperation. Without it, it's more like just people in a Discord, right?
Well, I think one of the unknowns that we still don't know, and I think will continue to raise the eyebrows of many people in the community, is we don't know if this deal included land. And we know that land and ships they can fly anywhere, but land, there's going to be heavy competition in safe space, especially for land, because that's got long-term profit outcomes, right? So if this included a serious advanced sales of land deeds or mining stakes, that also creates an issue as well. So I hope that's clarified in whatever is going to be released by Michael.
It will be very important for all of us to know the topography of the map itself in the metaverse, because at the moment we're speculating, okay, how big that map will be, how much land there will be for everyone. And from my personal perspective, the metaverse needs to contain billions of people. This is their goal, right? Or at least hundreds of millions. This means that the metaverse should be huge, right? And maybe the safe zone is very big. So it doesn't really matter how much land someone buys at the moment. Or maybe it's very small place, right? So we need this clarity. We need the information. Without it, we just speculate.
Yeah, there's been a couple things that have been made clear, and we've talked about this a bit on past shows, the fact that there are factions, there are regions within the factions, and even within those regions, there are solar systems, and those solar systems contain planets. And the planets themselves will have up to 64 land parcels. We've also been told, or it's been expressed, that land is going to be a very significant part of the power structure of the game. We've also learned that land is most likely to go through an auction process. And so it raises the question, how exactly should land sales be handled? And one of the things that comes to mind for me, and you've mentioned this, Christian, a number of times about, the people that were the early adopters and people that own posters. And I do think that for those that were speculative that early on, that there's some way that you can reward them. And one of the things that came to mind for me is that people that were part of the poster sale, maybe rather than having to go straightly through the auction bidding wars, that they get a piece of land, and maybe they get their name, because the naming system is also a little weird. And I understand they're going to go through the process probably and review that. But that seems weird that if I want my name, if I want Whitticus in the game world, that I have to initially claim it and then it goes to bid for a week. That just seems really strange, and I don't really see how that makes sense. Now with land sales, if that goes through a bidding process as well, that is going to make it incredibly competitive. But then that also raises the question of, do we interrupt the competitive nature? If those are the rules that are established that are bidding, if you're giving away large plots of land as a part of other side deals, you just help someone bypass this process that was a part of the game world. So my question to everyone is, what are your thoughts about how the land sales should take place so that it's reasonably fair and distributed to those that want to take part?
Real quick before we start that conversation, just to let everybody know that's coming in to start watching the stream, Michael and the dev team has not officially put out a statement. They said they are going to put out a statement, so we are waiting for that official statement. So please don't start yelling and picking up pitchforks just yet. Wait for that statement to come out first. Okay, sorry. Go ahead. You can go back to the.
Well, to me, Jesse, I think what this whole conversation stresses is it needs to demonstrate equity and fairness, right? There needs to be an equal opportunity for all people to come in and get an opportunity to buy land without having an unfair competitive advantage, with the exception of that being the money that you bring to the table when you come to that purchase, right? I think some of the things we've discussed in the past is the auction system and how many days the auction would be open for somebody to come in and take away your land claim, or how broadly that auction system goes. So do you have to be within the system to see that auction, or can you see it from across the metaverse, if you will? And if it's something where you can see it across the metaverse, then it's going to be another case of where people with the most money to spend are going to win. So it seems to be there needs to be some level of short-term auction and proximity. If it was my way, which it won't be, it would be you find your land, you make the claim, you stake it, and you're done. But I understand that can create some issues as well. But that's my point of view.
My personal view on this is that from what I know, I think they most likely dropped this idea for the our want. But I mean, for one that is outside of the place where we will be spawned when we first start in the metaverse. I think the want in those places should have this type of auction house, right, where we can bid on the best one, where we all start, right? But when it comes to want in the medium zone, in the danger zone, I think it will be first come, first serve. And in order to increase the efficiency of the conquering of the want, in a way, right, of the expansion of our communities, the infrastructure that we are building, etc. And I don't really think that it would be that bad also to have something for a name, because, for example, if your ROM comes up for auction, all right, and if someone decides to take your name, I think that would be really bad. And if you, for example, consider your guild very important, the name of the guild, like a brand, maybe you want to bet a huge amount of money to ensure that, yes, this is our name, and we'll fight for it, even if we need to put a lot of money for it, right? So I think that this is one of the ways that they make sure that someone do not steal your name and then blackmails you for your name, right? So this kind of makes sense, but it doesn't look that good when it comes to personal names, right? Personal name, it's your name. I don't really think that people should go that far competitive in order to harm individuals or just target individuals to harm them for whatever reason, right? Because it will be financial harm for you to bid on your own freaking name, right? This is ridiculous. But when it comes to guild names, I think that we need to have some kind of a better protection.
Mm-hmm.
I
Anyone
hope
else?
land payment will be first come first serve, but yeah, team head looks like they want to raise money while doing that, which is a reasonable approach, I think. So probably it's not just you need to stake your claim, but also to pay some Atlas or maybe Polis in order to claim. But hopefully it's not like it's an ongoing 7-day auction. Yeah.
Right. The last question I have here, and this is just kind of, again, one of the things we do on the show quite often is we do a lot of theory crafting. And so my question for both the listening audience and for those of us here participating on the live stream is, how can proper governance be ensured going into the future? And what do we even think that looks like? Because we know that there's going to be several tiers of DAO structure. The one that is obviously the most significant is the master DAO. And that's the one that sits over the top of the game itself, that looks to decisions and choices that affect the entire game community within Star Atlas. And then, of course, there's the faction DAOs, all the way down to the guild DAO itself. So, and then regional DAOs there will also be. So and we do know one thing that this ties into land is we do know that even if you have the governance token, you still will need to have land. And what we don't yet know is the impact of how much land to how much governance token, being Polis, you actually need, and how that collectively between those two assets boosts your influence within that DAO. But does anyone have any thoughts on governance and what's the best way to utilize it, really, not just for within the game and a power source, but even outside of the game to help the people guide development progress in the direction that we all want to see it go?
Well, I think this is a great example of the type of things that should show up within governance, and some other projects do use their governance structure to kind of chart these directions. I think the challenge, and we've talked about this internally, is my personal view on governance is majority rule doesn't always work out in the best interest of the people who are in the minority. So I have a love-hate relationship with 100% democracy. And I think it's going to hurt us in some cases and benefit us in others based on what your personal views are of whatever is being voted on at the time.
Yeah.
I want to say something about this. When it comes to the DAO voting and similar governance, I had the privilege to be interacting with people from the Flare Finance early on. And for those that do not know, it's a very important financial system for the future. And my personal view was that their governance structure is very well thought. For example, for small decisions that do not really have that big of an impact on the general system, you need only like 60% agreements or something like this. Maybe the percentage changes over time, but for example, if it's something very important for the system, maybe we need to have 80% agreements. But just like Banjo say, 100% agreements is democracy is really, really bad. That's why in our government structures you have opposition, like two parties, which can keep each other in check. Because if you don't have those structures in place, you create dictatorship, place for dictatorship, literally. And this is extremely dangerous if you do not have someone to tell you, hey, Chris, I think what you're doing is wrong. Maybe we shouldn't do it, right? If there is not such a person that can tell me this and keep me in check, maybe I'll make some kind of a mistake. Or I would do something that maybe it's too damaging for some people that I'm not taking under consideration.
Right.
So all of those things also need to be considered. I don't really know how the DAO for the Staratos metaverse will be, but we are also early testers for the Squads DAO, which is very well made. We also have dealings with Mango DAO, and we're testing all kinds of different structures to see which is the best, and can we recommend it to our partners and to the broader alliance that we are building. And overall, this type of structure will be the best. I'm pretty sure that the people who are developing the Star Atlas DAO are not fools. They understand that all of those like defense walls need to be in place, so people cannot like hijack a DAO, for example. This will be really bad, for example. So yeah, this is my point of view on it.
So, if I may jump in.
Yeah, feel free. I'll go afterwards.
Sorry?
Yeah, go ahead.
So far, Star Atlas shared that there will be 3 levels, but we don't know how it's actually going to work. Like, if you're staking, for example, Polis to some regional DAO, is that Polis also considered to be staked for the faction DAO and for overall Star Atlas DAO, or if it's just like in that region and you need to stake Polis separately for faction influence and separately for overall influence?
I think that this makes sense. I mean, for example, if your guild, if you are staking your Polis in your guild and your guild is in the, let's say, mud faction, and all the Polis taken in your guild also applies to the faction. Maybe this is the thing that makes the most sense to me. And for example, the Interstellar Alliance have multiple different organizations in it, and we also want to vote on sub DAO for the guild DAOs, right? So this is like a fourth style of DAO in the metaverse, but this will happen once we have the governments. We'll make the proposal if people want to use it or not, because if we have it, for example, Rome have different sections, like part of the guild will be for the military, others will be for the economical part, etc. Maybe you want to decentralize your community in order to be a little bit more efficient. Like those people would be taking care of this DAO and this type of management. So everybody will kind of be more organized. This is from my point of view, but I think it would be useful to have like also for the communities itself to be a little bit more decentralized, because there will be different interests in the same DAO of guild, which can also be like opposition. If one DAO is doing something, if one part of the guild is doing something damaging to the other part, maybe they can veto the decision or something like this. That also need to be considered, I think.
I don't actually think that Polis staked within DAC will have effect on DAC decision making. I think within DAC the thinking is that its own token will be used for decision making within DAC, and Polis staking will have effect on policy making in regions, factions, and overall Star Atlas DAO level. But we just don't know mechanics yet of
we also
influence.
don't know when will be available to make those tokens. Like, if we decide to make those tokens early on, are we going to damage the in-game economy? This is also what we need to consider. For example, if we already have our own token, the Interstellar token, if we put like 10, 20, $50 million in that token and people start hoarding it on decentralized DEX, are we going to destabilize the metaverse economy in this way? Or are we going to make the Atlas price not that relevant because big part of the community decide to use their own token? This is also very dangerous.
I don't see how pricing on your token would affect Atlas pricing, especially if it's not connected yet to the in-game economy. Because in part because there are no DACs and the token is not flowing through.
Yeah, but I mean, if we decide to release it right after the in-game DAO is prepared, for example, December 9 is now the target. This is very early for any smaller DAO to have their own token. This is what I mean. Like, so it may be better if it's only for governance, just like you said. Like if doesn't really have like monetary usage inside the metaverse, but just governance. But then where the police use case in a guild DAO is, so I don't know. Many things can happen for sure.
Yeah, I think the challenge with the faction level DAO is there's the very big reality that somebody takes over complete control of it with 51%. So if they accumulate 51% of the polis in that faction, it's going to be a hard job getting them out of there and preventing them from creating the rules. And as I understand it, it appears that there's going to be some level of title applied to people who are faction leaders related to their either being elected into position or their polis holdings. So I think that there is going to be some interesting things that happen up front as we start to understand more about that dynamic within the game, because there's going to be some people who have utopian, I guess, ideals they want to live by in a faction, and some that might live in more tyrannical. And it's going to be at the hands of the faction leader, as far as I can tell.
Yeah. So unless anyone has any other thoughts on governance, we're about an hour and a half in. First of all, I appreciate you guys coming on as our guests. While we have you here, I did actually have some questions that relate to you guys in particular. And I want to preface this by saying that if these are internal guild secrets, then by all means, no reason to answer. So no pressure there. But and I'll start with Prometheus and AEP. It's common knowledge that we went the route of ONI. You guys, I believe, are multi-faction, so you're in all three. While IA went to Interstellar Alliance is a mud faction. So Prometheus, just curious if you care to share some of your thoughts about why the guild decided to go that route.
Sure. So it was shared long time ago that different factions will have access to their own resources, their own kinds of resources. And we wanted to set up a guild that can really produce all kinds of ships, modules, whatnot, just to be a guild that can craft everything, really. And in order to do that, we need to have access to all kinds of resources. And therefore, we just needed to be set up in all of the faction spaces. Now, developers made the task a little bit difficult with requiring DACs to be faction specific, which is why we are going to set up actually 3 DACs just in order to fit in that structure, but still be able to go in the direction of our goal to really have a full supply chain of manufacturing of everything in the metaverse.
Very good. And Christian, with Interstellar Alliance having chose mud, what was the what was behind that choice? And yeah, if you care to share.
Yeah, from my personal perspective was if we are together in one place, we are all going to be able to interact with each other much more easier. Also, we are not really sure how the map topography will be. So, for example, what will happen if your guild, let's say, I'll give the example with Prometheus and Aep, without the respect, I think that it will be very complicated if the danger zone is separating the 3 factions for a very long period of time, right? We do not know if there will be delays, can we interact with each other, when that will happen. There will be too many things we do not know at current time. So I was thinking that, hey, maybe it's better just to focus on one faction, build strong foundation, work with our partners from the United Metaverse organizations, because we have organizations from all different factions. So we are creating trade agreements at the moment, what we call the Metaverse Accords. So we make sure that we have our own level playing field and we all work together. And we know, for example, how to tax each other for different goods and services. and we can all use each other's goods and services, right? Because everybody's building all kinds of tools that other organizations might feel that are very useful for their structure. And I think that it would be really good if more people are considering those things, because maybe it's very profitable for you to interact with more communities on higher stage. Like many people are saying that maybe what we are doing is too early, but I prefer to be too early than too late. Like this is something very important, especially the big investors. Most of them will just try to fund any project later on if they are too late, and in their eyes they don't look like they're too late, they're just late, right? So there is a lot of factors that we choose to just focus on one faction that can allow us to protect each other much more better, because we are alliance from many different organizations, and nearly all of our partners are also choosing to go mod. It will be just much more easier for us to protect each other, interact with each other, just expand the entire community in the mod faction. From what I'm personally seeing, not that many people are choosing to be mod for, I don't know, the reasons. Doesn't really matter as long as we are working together. Even if you have just a couple of thousand people, if you are working together and you are very efficient, you will be able to do a lot more work than communities with tens of thousands of people, right? So this is it, just efficiency and growth. This is what we are focusing.
Yeah, that's interesting. Since the very beginning, like the different factions were kind of jockeying for position. When faction registration first opened up, Mud was the top by far, and so it was interesting that ONI was sitting on the bottom, and now it's kind of adjusted out and keeps doing its thing. But for Rome, we decided to go a single faction route, and there's definitely potential benefits to the multi-faction approach as well as the single faction approach. And I think for all of us, we're just making our best guesses because there's still so many unknowns and so many variables that can reveal themselves along the way. With that, does anyone else have anything else they want to share? I think that we've kind of mostly covered, some of the things we wanted to cover about recent news. Anything else that's standing out there for anyone?
Yeah, so we had a cool tweet this week. I'll bring it up, and the data on this, it isn't real, and this is what it will look like if you stake your PIS-X4s. What do you think, guys?
That's cool. I actually
love
haven't
the way
had
it looks
to see this yet. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Benjo.
Yes, thank you. I love the way it looks. I think for the sake of fairness to the dev team, they've already said that these numbers aren't accurate, so these are just placeholder numbers. But the thing that stands out to me is this looks like this is a fleet. So this is a person who has staked 3 X4s, as far as I can tell, and this is what we can probably expect with the ship staking that's coming up.
I think that from what we know, actually PG from Rome let me know this information. I had no idea that there is this interview with Michael. He was saying that per month, maybe we'll be able to get like 8 to 10% of the price of the ships in Atlas. If we can calculate it, for example, if one ship is 100,000 Atlas, maybe we'll be able to get 8 to 10K Atlas per month with the ship. Maybe something like this. I'm not really sure exactly what the dynamic will be, but shifting just calculating the investment, probably it will be something like this, like 8 to 10% at maximum. I think this is pretty good overall.
I think it's great. And I think that number comes back to, and we had conversations about this on the show quite some time back, where he hinted towards the idea that he thought a year was a reasonable return on investment. So if you split a year into months, that brings it to right around 8%. So that would make sense to have it in that range. And if we come even anywhere close to that, I will be pleased with that for my own investment for sure. Now, the things that also remain unknown as we look at this here and we try and speculate what ship staking will look like. We can see here, as Banjo mentioned, this seems to be a fleet that's been committed, tells us they're enlisted for 12 days. The things that we don't know that I think will be an interesting factor is when we manage the fleet, do we have any way to anticipate what the resource requirement will be for those days? And then also, what is the process for refueling, rearming, repairing, and refeeding your crew? Is that something that you just push a button, it takes your Atlas, and it just immediately buffs those meters all the way back up to 100%? Or do you have to take those ships out of commission for a moment, and then this process of refueling and bringing it back up to full spec might take a day or two? Or is this an immediate thing? These are some things that I'm curious to know. And then also the other big factor is, let's say that it is 8%. And so you know that if you had $1,000 worth of ships, that means you're going to get $80 in that month for those ships. But what we don't know is how much on average it might cost for you to run your ships daily or even monthly to receive that reward. You guys have any thoughts on that?
I did think about it quite a bit. For example, there was a thread from a lady in the community who asked, how are you going to invest $200? And I said something of the sort, I'll buy the cheapest ship and save some money for my mining gear, right? And I'll save like half just for future expenses or things that I currently don't know, right? So what I personally think is that in the minigame from the start, everything will be very basic. So I'm not going to be surprised if you just give some Atlas in order to replenish the ammo, food, fuel, health. But when it comes to a little bit more in the future, when the game is more developed and the mining is available, I know that fuel will be like a separate asset which we'll be able to extract from the mining. The food and the ammo will probably, the food will be somehow gathered from somewhere. Maybe on the planets we'll be able to find food resources. The ammo will be just crafted somehow, and the health will be from ships that can repair other ships. But from the start, I think everything will be very basic and very easy.
Right.
Yeah, definitely. As for the food thing, Michael did say that we're going to be able to plant farms, and actually the Calico Guardian has a module for farming. So
hydroponics, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, in fact, I think it was mentioned already that there will be 4 kinds of resources. For health, it will be toolkits, but fuel, food, and ammo will have the same names. That we will just buy on marketplace, similarly to how we buy ships and everything else right now. That there will be just some huge NPC orders with those items. So this, we don't know amounts of units that we'll need, but also in one of the recent interviews, I think Michael mentioned something like 10 to 20% cost, the maintenance cost for running missions. So meaning, like, for example, on this picture, we have daily rewards of 3.66. So you can expect something like 0.36 to 0.72 Atlas in terms of costs of those resources that you will need daily to replenish. Now, you will start with 100% of each of these. Initially, like, all ships come loaded with everything, and then they will just start eating through. Again, like, based on the picture, it's not clear if how frequently one would need to manage. Is the ammo depleted over 12 days, or if somebody needs to go every hour to replenish that? And if it's not, if it's at 0, then the fleet is not working. That part is not clear. I think it was mentioned before that bigger ships will require maintenance less frequently. So we'll see how that frequency will stack up, because if it's like daily maintenance for X4s, then probably everybody would be fine. But otherwise, maybe X4s will need very frequent maintenance as compared to other
Yeah, I agree. One of the things that jumps out to me when looking at this is thinking about how ammo will work. So if you're sending a ship out, you're not going to be able to know how much ammo you will need. Like you might just have some missions, I guess, where you send it out, it comes back full health, full ammo, and you don't have to spend that expense. But yeah, sending, like if there is a like a harder zone, I imagine that would become the expense that you have to pay.
I think this will be the case more in tier 1 missions.
Yeah,
In these tier 0 missions, I really expect just constant depletion rate for all of those resources. So
Yeah. I
if
think in the tier one ones, I think that's when we'll start to see the modules and the components come into play, and maybe even some of the charms that we've already seen, which are, without sharing any details, we have an understanding they might have some impact on how quickly these different categories deplete.
yeah. One thing I thought might be funny on that last thought was if you stake a Calico Guardian and it never loses health, or like a Pierce C9, it just ammo slowly goes down because it's the biggest fish in the sea.
Well, and also, yeah, at some point, I mean, will having an R8 in your fleet reduce your cost of repair? You know, things like that. The other question, and maybe some of you have heard an answer. I seem to recall it was a mention, but I don't remember what the answer was. So, if we have a considerable amount of Atlas flowing into the economy as a part of the rewards and emissions, and so if that happens, of course, that's going to lower the value and price of Atlas. Will that 8% or whatever that reward amount is adjust accordingly if Atlas as Atlas goes up and down?
I think, Jesse, what's going to happen is you're going to see people pushing the price of Polis up. So I think as that people get their Atlas and they spend on the 4Rs, kind of get their ships back into commission, they might keep some on the side for any future purchases. But I think a lot of people we'll see that Atlas Polis swap pool pretty active, in my opinion, early on.
I think there was a mention of rebalancing of rewards amount based just in order to get back to more constant ROI per dollars invested.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's supposed to be starting high and then lower as needed.
No, not just that. If, for example, they intend to have 10% return and Atlas drops in half, then they would double Atlas rewards in that sense.
Yeah, makes sense.
There was some conversation about this rebalancing in the future. If there is some kind of problem or if there is too much Atlas or something like this, they will try to balance it early on. I don't really think that it will be that difficult or that damaging from the start. But if you analyze, information, normally you have the necessary data over a long period of time, how it's affecting the market. So I'm pretty sure that they have the right people there, or if they don't, if they are listening, I highly recommend them to have financial analysts there, and whose sole job is to make sure that whatever is happening on the long term is just recorded and explored, and everybody knows what is going on the back end of the economy. So I'm pretty sure that they will take care of it. I highly doubt that they will be just letting it go to whatever happens, right?
Yeah, this is an area where Rome was especially interested in Star Atlas because we knew they were bringing economists onto the team, and we saw that there was a burn mechanism on the back end to control for inflation. So I think in regards to all the things that we talked about today that we're a little bit concerned with, the economics is something that we've been really happy with, of how they're going to get Atlas and Polis into the game and out of the game.
Yep.
That was one of my worries. Many people are talking about earning out of the metaverse, and my personal strategy is that I didn't really come here to earn. I came here to build, and my personal investments are like 5 years I'm building, right? And after that, I'm getting some returns on it based on what I built, right? And I'm pretty sure that if we focus on growth of the entire community, we'll see more and more people who are coming here for the long-term building of this metaverse, and not that much focusing on the people who come to earn, because they are extremely important part of the economy, right? Because they will be like taking jobs from people or businesses that want to lend their assets or something like this. But I really think that if we focus on bringing people who have long-term desires to build their businesses, brands, just to shift as much as possible from the physical world to the metaverse, and to just create digital marketplaces, everything, pretty much whatever we can think about, I think it would be a good idea to at least try to bring it to the metaverse, right? Because it will be beneficial to everybody, and it will just expand the overreach of the entire community and all the tools and services that we are offering. So, for example, if we have many shops that people are interested to explore inside the metaverse, people will most likely come to the metaverse to buy something and not to just open a web browser and just scroll and look for something to purchase. The experience is not the same, right? So I think it would be a lot more exciting metaverse to purchase things, or just to go and hang out with your friends and to go in some shop or new planet and just explore the assets that they are offering. I think this will be really interesting to see how we'll be in the future. And from what we're seeing, our global situation is really bad from my standing. And I think that in the future, it will not going to improve on the short term. Maybe in the long term, it will be better. But I think it will just continue to degenerate over a long period of time in the next 10 years. And I think that more and more people will be forced in this type of environment that they can create value for themselves, their families, businesses, anything. All of a sudden, a lot of jobs became non-essential, whatever the hell this even means. But yeah, I think that a lot of people will be harmed to transition and automation and all kinds of different things that currently we are not expecting. So I think that what we are doing and the place that we are is very special, and we need to really be, focused on building rather than just focusing on competition, because if we cooperate, it will be a lot more beneficial to everybody here.
Very good.
Yeah, the health of what will be is dependent on the ones who are here now. So I love it. And when it comes to being a consumer, it's all about the experience. So people are going to prefer an experience of just opening up a browser and hopping on Amazon and just doing what they've been doing for the last 10 years. And then others are going to see the potential and experience it for what it is in the metaverse. I look forward to it. It's going to be exciting.
Fancy Hat, do we have any other images? Anything else we want to go over?
So we have the components left from last week.
Maybe we jump in just to the crew and talk about the crew between the different ships. I don't know if we'll get through everything, but we still have a good bit of time. And then, of course, Christian and Prometheus, you're welcome, of course, to stay with us. However, we understand you've also been on for an hour and 47 minutes. So don't feel like you're tethered to us, but you're more than welcome to join us if you want to.
I think it's very productive conversation overall, and I'm used to it. I cannot be that active in the Discord anymore because I'm kind of very busy with this type of conversations and meetings. But I really enjoy it. I think it's very productive, and we need to have more conversations because, just like Ray said, we are the people who are building this thing indirectly from the Staratos team, right? So we need to make sure that whatever we're doing is not to make it good for ourselves, but to also take under consideration the entire metaverse and everybody in the community. I think this will be the right way to do everything and business in the future.
Agree.
Thanks. It's fun to be here. So yeah, sure.
Thanks.
Great. Why don't we jump into crew then? Fancy, you want to bring it up?
Okay.
All right. So what we're looking at here for the people who are just listening in, we have an Excel spreadsheet of all the different ships that have been released so far. And we have the the crew that's been released or announced to be released with the ship. And really the goal of this conversation today is kind of just theory craft about why. Was this what you expected or what you didn't expect? I don't think we need to go through every single ship, crewmate by crewmate. However, I would like to get some feedback from different people on what you thought of this crew layout Was it what you thought it was going to be, and do you think it should have been different anywhere?
For me, the big one that stands out is I was surprised by the firepower and capability differences between the two capital ships. And so I know that they're still going through rebalancing, and the Calico Guardian is classified as a multi-role, where the Pierce C9 is categorized as a fighter. But we can see there that those are ships that are priced relatively close to the same. However, you can see that there's an additional pilot. There are 3 additional turret gun points, turret gunners, actually operators. So those are actually roles for people on the ship. And so there's also different modules and commander grade weaponry on that ship. And so I'm curious to see how they will circle back and rebalance functionality for what the Guardian does to make it to justify a similar price, but seemingly now how the resources seem off. That was my thing.
I think the reason why the Calico Guardian is a little bit more expensive than the Pierce 9, the Pierce 9 is just a fighter. That's all it is. It's meant to go out, beat the crap out of people. That's all it's meant to do. The Calico Guardian is more of an explorer, so I think of it as for Star Trek fans, the Enterprise D specifically, because that's all it was. It was just meant to explore, and that's it. But it was self-sustaining, and I think that's what the Calico Guardian is that it can stay out much longer without pretty much having to come back to a station and getting a refit, getting refueled. It has its own hydroponic plant, so it doesn't really need to come in to take in more supplies to feed the people. It can feed itself.
Right.
So I think it's just more of it can stay out longer and it can do more because it's a multi-role, so it can do more than the Pierce C9, because Pierce C9 is you just send him out he's just a bruiser. That's all he does.
Yeah. It does the Pierce C9 does have a med bay, as opposed to the 2 extra modules on the Guardian are, like you mentioned, the hydroponics, and then there's also a theater. My question would be are there other things, like it looks like it's more maneuverable, and as you mentioned, it's got the long range, but does it have better stealth capability? Because it seems like it would, versus this big bulky C9, which is also 100 meters longer. It's a big ship.
Yeah, one thing I'd like to mention is that the Pierce C9, it can kind of have the same capabilities. I guess not really the life-supporting functions, but paired with a R8, there's the 2 massive tanks of fuel. That really gives it a hand. It gives it like the same capabilities almost, but you have to have another ship in the combo.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the ships will be recalibrated and readjusted based on the mini game that we will be getting soon. I think that this is one of the reasons that we are not going to get the PvP early on, because they are afraid that, for example, if the PRC9 is a lot more powerful in combat and you paid the same price for, or nearly the same price, like Calico Guardian, I think it will be really bad, right? It will not go and look good that all of a sudden one ship is too overpowered. So I think that a lot of things will be readjusted and balanced over the next 6 months, and they will be using a lot of the time to just balance things.
Yeah,
and
you bring up you bring up a great point about rebalancing, and I think the when is going to be important, right? So the sooner the better, because as people start to develop their crew and your crew starts to get a better skill set, and then if you start rebalancing to the negative impact of the crew that you've built, I think there will be an outcry in the community. And I know that they have a simulator that they're working on where they can work out some of these issues internally. But from my perspective, to Jesse's original question, I think the C9 is a get in, kill a lot of stuff, get out, and then go resupply, where I think the Calico is going to be steered for long-term exploration. And I think there's some things we still don't know yet. I'm sure there's going to be some limitations around components and modules that will give some ships advantages over the other. I can't imagine that the Calico Guardian will be allowed to include the modules or components that make the C9 great, right? Or vice versa.
Mm-hmm. a few other ships that were surprising to me as I look at this here. One is the Rainbow Ohm that was listed as a freighter, but yet it doesn't have a cargo foreman. And when you look at the thing, and I like that ship. I mean, it's just an interesting ship. I actually grabbed a few of them. It's a ship that, I mean, it looks like a block of cheese, but it also looks very prestigious, as you could literally, that could be a dignitary ship. You know, you could almost make it into a space motorhome. It's beautiful on the inside. We know it's going to be incredibly fast because it's got a warp drive and an impulse drive that's above its class. It's got large in both of those categories, even though it's a medium ship. So it's interesting that this was listed as a freighter, but it's got an art gallery in it. But it looks like a really clean, it doesn't look like a ship you're trying to get dirty. So maybe the freight is going to be precious cargo, and you're trying to get it from point A to point B really fast.
Looks like a space bus.
Yeah, I was actually with a private chat I was having with a few people. I think the Packlight is the 18-wheeler. It's just meant to move cargo. It's not meant to look pretty. But that the Ohm is that fast courier ship. So if you need to move something secretly fast, because it has stronger hull, it has more defense, it moves faster than the Packlight. So like I'm considering it like the dignitary ship. You need to move the VIPs around fast, and in luxury, because if you look at the inside of the Ohm, that looks like granite, maybe marble.
Yeah, fancy. It's a sexy ship.
It's fancy. Fancy made a great point. Like how luxurious do you have to be on a ship that has stairs? Like you could easily have an elevator, but no, you'd rather have stairs for that nice dignitary with marble. You get to look at paintings, wine and dine, and then look at that. Like that looks like the inside. That looks like the inside of a Navy ship. You got coffin bunk. Everything's rusty. Nothing's painted. Look, the people are even missing. They don't want to work.
Well, I take a little bit of offense to that, Andy, because that's more my aesthetic, and I really do want to work.
Actually, this is kind of funny, but everybody who has experience on ships and saw this picture of the Navy ship, they get probably PTSD, from that room.
Yeah, they get flashbacks.
I'm telling you, because I used to be in the Navy, and I can tell you, when sweepers came around, people were saying like they were hiding inside the lamp, or like they were like finding places where you could just sleep for 3 hours, so they didn't have to do anything. So, and that's just what it reminds me of. It's like, hey, let's go from point A to point B, or would you like to go there in a class, or would you like to just haul some stuff? But I am personally investing in both. So,
yeah. Oh, there you go. For the record, we're not that prejudiced.
So what do you think the purpose of the cargo foreman is? Since we now know we have a freight ship that has one that doesn't, but we also see it in the larger ships. The Capital and the ships down below, the medium ships.
Well, we see the Star 8 too, which is an interesting place to have the cargo foreman.
Well, it's a massive ship. Just the distance between the two barrels of the PSR 8 is the size of like the length of a Calico Hero. So yeah, it'd be cool if a cargo foreman was a crew member you could like leave just on the ship and they just handle everything, and you could like go around on a planet. That's quite far away, but that's the game we were all hoping for.
I thought you would mention that Zeus Opod has cargo foreman. And only small smuggle cargo space.
Yeah, and then actually, to jump on that, a lot of people are saying that it doesn't even have a scanner, and it's a data runner.
Right.
Yeah, this data was pulled last week when we was going to present it, so they might have changed or tinkered with some numbers since then. We will have to come back to this in the future when it's more concrete. But just from this, I would say if you want to get like as many crew members as possible, it seems like the X5 is really the most cost effective, with both the pilot and co-pilot half the price of the next.
Of the Opal Jet. Yeah.
Could also just buy thousands of X4s. There are wallets with that amount.
You have choices.
For Bodhi, not the scanners. I'm talking about the officers,
the crew member.
The actual crew members. There isn't a scanner. There isn't a scanner crew member versus, but it does have a cargo cargo foreman. That's what it is.
So there is a scanner module of the support, but no scanner crew member, and there is.
Yeah.
That's fair. We know that, and again, some of us we're going to sound like we're speaking out of the corner of our mouth because we're trying to avoid sharing information we might have that isn't widely out in the open. And just for everybody's awareness, if you are a server booster for Star Atlas, you get access to a special room that does show some additional materials, some additional content that's not supposed to be shared. So some of us are tap dancing around a little bit of those circumstances. But I think that what I'm curious about as it relates to the cargo foreman is, to me, it seems that the crew is there to reduce in some way the burn of the 4 Rs. And what does a cargo foreman help reduce? Do they reduce the amount of fuel that's used because they're able to, place the load correctly, or what benefit do they bring the burn of your outgoing assets?
Yeah, I'm thinking maybe a cargo foreman can allow you to pull to inventory more efficiently, so you can pack in more stuff, and maybe you can bring in more stuff. Or in case of the OPOD, because it has that smuggler, maybe a better chance of not getting caught.
So yeah, I think that's an interesting one. Maybe you get like a 10% boost to capacity for the way you can actually put goods on your ship. Huh, that's interesting.
I thought it was actually a person required to be there in order to operate the module in the first place. Like if you don't have somebody to load the cargo, then you will not transport any cargo.
So the OM has that built in. Is that the implication, since they don't have one?
Well, yeah, OM surprised me in this regard. I'm not sure if engineer, for example, there can perform the duty of loading the cargo.
And we may not see this in the initial tier release, but one of the things that we've talked about this on past shows is the interaction between crew members. In the white paper, it talks about if they went to the same academy, they get a boost. If they've served on the ship for a period of time together, they get a boost. And then also making sure you have the right crew member for the job that creates. So there's these dynamics, these variables that give buffs to the ship and productivity, which also probably impacts the 4 Rs. So, but probably, as we all suspect, probably not in the immediate release where it's just essentially ship staking.
And they also shared there's some inherent racial perks as well, at least in the beginning, where you can build your skill up. But for example, ONI, who might have some background in scanning technology or stealth technology, might have a boost initially as a crew member on a ship that has ONI tech.
I think that many people are not taking under consideration. They are thinking that only will have good scanners or stealth technologies. No, all factions will have the same technology. Just some factions will be a little bit better in it. Right?
Yeah.
So I think that many people are kind of took under consideration that, for example, there will be no stealth in ONI or Ushtar, or they will not going to have the same opportunities or something like this. But no, it's just bonuses, faction bonuses.
Yeah. And in addition to faction bonus, I think it also has to do with resources that are readily available in factions that lends towards the creation of things that give those boosts.
Yeah. Like, for example, one of the main reason that we choose the Mud faction was because they will have a little bit better engines for a long distance travel. And one of the main goals for the Interstellar Alliance is to create this Interstellar Stargate network, or the ISN that we're calling it, which will be pretty much like a transportation system that we are all going to have access to it, but we are all trying to cooperate into making it, because there is no way one community can make this on their own. Like, we are sure of it. So we are just making sure that our bonus is just the perfect one for our long future goals.
Yeah, I think the interstellar travel network is something that is going to be interesting, because in EVE, there is some degree of corporation or faction ownership over those gates. And they do create choke points for conflict. So I'm really curious to see how those gates expand in medium space and deep space, and see what guilds seek to gain control over them. Because when you could be flying into something that could be something of an ambush if you don't know what's on the other side.
I think that from what we know, nearly all of those stargates, like I'm calling them, will be built by the community in the Staratos metaverse. And how we are envisioning it is that everybody will have their own stargates that they will be maintaining them, but will be all like nodes on a big network. For example, we're all going to have security teams which can quickly travel from one port to another port to defend each other if someone from our partners is in danger or is under attack or something like this. But overall, we think that if everyone is like a node on a network, everybody will be will have the necessary incentivizing components to protect the entire network. So everybody can travel, or just neutral people who are not part of the alliance or our guilds can also use it. It's just a commercial network which will just improve the efficiency and the growth of the entire metaverse. So we are just focusing on it because we think that it will be just important on the long run, everything to work a little bit more efficient than otherwise.
I'm curious, as we looked at that ship list there, the Amway, the bounty hunter ship. It looks like it just has room for one pilot, so it doesn't tick any of the other boxes there. How do you guys see that playing out use-wise? Is it just initially going to be staked like any other ship, and then later in another tier, it may have bounties that are on NPCs? How do we think the bounty mechanism is going to play out? That's, by the way, I love this shot because we've seen another shot with an ONI alien that has a sniper rifle like that. And then here's a spotlight shining down on this thing. How do you think it actually recovers someone? It does have a tractor beam. So is it just snatch this person up and puts them into it's the only ship that seems to have the module right out the gate of a hold. What do they call that? What are they calling it?
Brig.
The brig.
The brig. Sure. Mm-hmm. So yeah, what do you guys think about this ship?
Well, I'm excited about this ship. I've been excited about this ship since they announced the idea that there'd be bounty hunting ships. And just based on some of the town halls that we've seen, there's a lot of interest in people being their own little Mandalorian, which I get it. And there's also been some level of bragging by other members in the community about how they're going to be the bounty hunters of hire in the metaverse, which may or may not be true. But I think this fulfills everyone's little Star Wars, fantasy of doing something where they can go and put somebody in carbonite. So I think I'm driven to buy one. I bought one. I see it as my ship that I'll use for solo play when I'm not doing larger guild events. It's that and the OPOD really suit my play style all the way around.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Did anyone else get an Amboy?
Yeah, I got one of them. I think it should be a ship that everyone eventually has. I think bounty hunting is going to be a profitable and well sought out or sought after profession. I think it'll be very, very lucrative for people. They might not think so now, but
yeah,
I personally like those ships. I mean, they all look very good and they all are very useful. But I personally kind of stay in the back and I'm just watching most of the time. I'm not really investing that much personally in ships. And I think that there will be a lot of readjustments and balancing. And I don't really have a problem to give like $1, $2, or even $10,000, depending on the size of the ships, to buy some of them if they are good for my play style. So because I'm not that available for like ship missions or something like this, so I think that many people have to readjust their play style eventually because we don't really know what we'll be able to do exactly from the start and later on. So yeah, I'm just trying to be a little bit more conservative with my purchases when it comes to the ships. I think that on the short term, the tokens will most likely explode eventually in price when the mini game comes and a lot more spotlight and people learn about the game. Because at the moment, actually, we do have like 200,000 people or something like this likes in the Staratos Twitter, but I think that this is very small amount compared to what will be when we have some kind of a playable game
Right.
from the VCs and the communities that I'm talking about. Most of the bigger ones are very conservative as well, and they're waiting for something, playable, and the communities to be able to interact with each other before they make some bigger investment in it, or taking
Yeah.
this risk that they don't really want to put at the moment to this stage for their communities and members.
Do you, based on that, do you have a favorite ship or one that you feel is the best suited for your playstyle?
Yeah, I'm personally waiting for the C11s as well. I'm focusing on just investing in different assets that can currently bring me more profit, so I can get one or two, or who knows, maybe I'm not going to be able to get any if there is not enough, or if my order is not taken. So I don't really know, but maybe I will be forced. I'm just taking it under consideration that maybe I will be forced to buy on the secondary market, and I accept it. This is just how it is. Right?
Yeah.
Can you bring that shot back up, Fancy? For a point of reference for you folks that are looking at this, if you can see that there's a side door on the side of the ship, those are two X5s going in there if you want some scale for how big this beast is.
This would be huge, man. And can you imagine the Titan class ships? No,
right?
Unbelievable. It would be unbelievable. I really want to see one in action or around some planet to see the scale.
Right. Just flying up next to it and then seeing it even turn to start heading in a direction. Just seeing it move in any direction, it'll just be a sight to behold.
And we also don't really have any information on the motherships. And
that's
I think that they don't really have any like a wall on growth. Like maybe we can expand. Like I don't really know if you guys know about the Stargate series. Like when I literally grew up with this TV series, the Stargate universe, right? And they had these motherships, right? That you can pretty much build them as much as you want. So maybe we'll have entire cities in the future, like this scale. Huge scale of ships.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of Stargate. It's one of the games that I want this game to be, as far as what you see in that universe, that in the Expanse. But Stargate was very impactful on me as I was growing up as well. I think on the town hall this week, what we heard in relation to motherships, or maybe it was the anomaly ships, is that some of the gun stations are going to be as big as a Guardian. Which I think that just shows you the scale of some of these ships when a gun system alone is going to be as big as that ship, which is how long, Jesse?
300 meters.
Yeah, that's amazing. What is the impact of a ship that has a gun that size? What can they do with it?
Well, let's just say that whatever they hit, there will be nothing to salvage.
Actually, Banjo, when it comes to the Stargate series, one of the idea for the Stargate network that we are building is, if you remember the Ancients, there were these ancient race that built the Stargate network, and they send those ships all over the universe in order to build it in this selfless, honorable way, right? So the future generations can use those portals to travel to different parts of the universe. I think that this was extremely noble thing for them to do, and I think that for me personally, there was nothing really more exciting to build in the metaverse. And actually, this is the only reason that I'm here. I just saw, hey, I can do this in this alternative metaverse. So that's why I decided, okay, I'll create this community, and this will be our main point to create, right? So maybe now we are very early, but maybe in 50 years, this metaverse can still be here, and our grandchildren can use it. So I think very interesting thing.
Much like Stargate, I wonder if the follow-on civilizations will be as utopian of a mindset. I think this is kind of geeking out on Stargate, so sorry everybody, but at the end of the day, you had the ancients who created this amazing Stargate to get from point A to point B, but the follow-on civilizations used it to kill each other. So it's really curious how it's going to turn out in the game.
Yeah, Let's hope that we are less barbaric, and the
Yes.
blockchain system and the trustless system that we are provided can help us with this. Because really, it would be a shame if we just use it to kill each other. It would be
Yeah.
better to just use it.
Be an Asgard. Don't be a globe.
Yeah,
You know, I shared that on a past, kind of getting a little bit esoteric about how, what I think the metaverse can be and become. And I mentioned this on a past episode. It's like, the whole warring thing, just battle, battle, battle. We've already done that. We've experienced that as humanity. What else can we create? What can we create that's new? That doesn't mean it has to be fully utopian, but what can we try and experience that we actually haven't already tried? But on the note of ships, Prometheus, you guys, Alpha Industries, you guys are ship builders. So I'm curious to hear your thoughts on what is your ship of choice, or one that you feel like meets your particular playing style?
Playing style. Well, in terms of ships, I'm also getting a C11, and I'm sure many Rom guys, raise of hands. Who out of you is getting C11?
C11.
Yeah, so I expected, and that's part of explanation of why that deal is a problem, is because so many people are excited about that particular ship as their biggest investment, let's say, in this game, as just one ship.
If there's 4 C11s here just amongst us that we want, there's not enough to go around based on what we think might be left. Yeah.
Yeah, my estimate is actually lower than yours. I think it will be more like 80 ships total. So we'll see.
If we just take under consideration that each guild leader or founder will like at least one ship for himself, imagine the competitive spirit that we will have against each other to get one, right? That's why I'm saying maybe it's better to just have a little bit more of those ships, so we don't really have this issue, right?
Yeah,
And this doesn't even account for flippers.
The problem, though, with adding more ships is that my guess is, economically speaking, they have an econ team there. So when the ships are structured in the rarity levels, this was thought out as the impact of tiers. So all of a sudden, if you throw a bunch more of this higher tier commander ship into the mix just to account for this sale, you've just kind of interrupted the whole ecosystem. So that's my concern.
Maybe we just need to take under consideration that yes, maybe we'll have to buy on the secondary market. We need to be just prepared and have the liquidity, and that's it. Just if someone purchases it and decide to sell it on 50% profit, well, I'm willing to buy it. So we'll see what will happen.
You're supposed to say, I'm not going to buy, and then have them lower the price and then buy it.
Well, let's not lie to each other. For sure there will be people who will be willing to pay if that's their choice, right? If they desire it, this is just how open market works, right? If you really want it, you'll get it. Doesn't matter the price.
Yeah, 100% true.
Yeah, but getting back to the ship selection, so EFI as a corporation, of course, I think will be heavily weighted towards backlight, just because it seems to be like the workhorse, and will need the whole intent is to carry a lot of stuff and produce a lot of stuff. So we'll need to carry all of that ore and refined materials and whatnot from place to place. And this looks like the ship to do it right now. I was expecting OM before it was released to be a competitor, but just based on characteristics, it's not really this one seems to be the one. Of course, we'll have all other kinds of ships to protect them and so on, but this is the ship of choice.
We've talked about that on the show, that we think that is probably one of the most underrated or underappreciated ships that is really going to kind of be a late bloomer that people realize later how significant it is in the gameplay.
That's exactly why I bought mine. I see it as being the unsung hero of industry. Now,
one of the questions that had come up from someone is they're asking us, What do we think? Let me pull this one up here. What do we think the stealth capabilities of will be the Amway versus the OPOD? And by the way, I still think that the OPOD is probably the pound for pound best, probably most the best ship in the offering thus far for cost and capability. You know, as that data runner that just looks sexy, it seems to do a lot. It's going to hold some cargo. If you could only have like one ship for the price, it seems like a pretty solid choice. But as when it comes to stealth, because we know that Amway is out there rounding up villains, what do we think the stealth capability comparison is between these two?
If I were to make a distinction between the two, it's really about what they're used for. So I think the Amway will have really good stealth for close up missions to kind of, you know, catch the bad guy, if you will, or catch the bounty, where the OPOD seems more stealth, is the stealth I'd want to have in deep space if I'm out exploring. It's something that's probably a little bit more robust against the larger ships, where the Amway is a little bit more about just staying stealthy enough to be able to catch who you ever need to catch. So I have both. I'm a Visas person. I love that play style all the way around. And at the end of the day, I'm going to use them probably in two different ways. But I think the OPOD will have a more of a fleet stealth mission versus an individual stealth mission.
Very cool. Gents, we're at 2 hours and 20 minutes. Is there anything else that we've got to cover, Fancy?
I think that's everything. Yeah. Any closing comments?
You know, I think that the show went well in regards to, I think that it's clear that our concerns about recent news with Star Atlas, it's definitely not a witch hunt. But what it is it's, again, when you think power to the people, well, we collectively, all together, the community are the people. And I think it's important that the people voice their mind, voice their opinion, so that it is known, heard, and understood. And I think that when we do that, it will have impact on choices that the company makes going forward. But as you can also see, we're also talking about other news and things that are shared, because we are here because we believe that this project and all that it represents can do some wonderful things. We hope our voices are heard and the things that we've discussed are considered. I absolutely want to thank Prometheus of Alpha Industries and Interstellar Alliance with Christian. You guys, I know it was short notice, and I asked you guys to come on, and I appreciate you showing up and sticking around as long as you have, sharing your thoughts and ideas. You're certainly welcome back. Theory crafting about all things Star Atlas is something we do regularly here on this show that we enjoy to do. I'd like to thank all of you, the viewing audience that show up and provide your comments, your feedback, and questions. Be sure to like and subscribe, of course. There's 3 guilds represented here. Of course, the Metaverse Nomads are representing Rome. We've got Alpha Industries and Interstellar Alliance that were represented here as well. So again, this is a community conversation, kind of our own personal town hall that we wanted to have, because we too are part of shaping what is taking place in Star Atlas, but also across the metaverse. And guys, any closing comments from the rest of you?
Just from me personally, thank you very much for everyone for being here and everybody who is investing their time. I'm someone who really appreciate this. I understand how precious everybody time is and how much effort everybody is putting in everything. So thank you very much for everything that you're doing. We often watch your streams or share the recording of the town house. It's very useful that you're sharing out this information with everybody. So thank you very much for everything you're doing and all the sacrifices everybody's putting in.
Awesome.
Thank you for inviting. It was a lot of fun to join here. I would like to do that again. Yeah, I hope the team actually hears community on these issues, because yeah, there are some.
Yeah, I think that this was very good shout out for quality and for well thought plans for the future of the entire project. And overall, this is the most important thing that we all need, right? The quality, and so we don't stay in the dark and for such big deals. And to know what exactly we are doing. But I also want to say just stay positive. This is just the beginning. A lot of things are happening, and it will happen in the future. So take care, everyone. Thank you for having me again, and bye from me.
Awesome.
Thank you.
And one other thing, I just wanted to say that Michael Wagner, you've mentioned in the past that you don't turn down any interviews, and you're happy to answer the tough questions. We absolutely want to have you on this show. As you can see, for 15 plus episodes now, we show up here in Theory Craft and talk about things happening within the Star Atlas community, and we'd certainly love to have you as a guest on the show.
Yeah. I think there's a lot that the team and others who've watched can take away from today's episode, and I look forward to whatever happens. That there's just going forward more transparency or up to date information before things happen. Because the more we understand, then the more educated our decisions will be moving forth, and it's just the right thing to do.
Fantastic. Well, thank you everybody for joining. Next week we will have a special guest. For those of you who don't know her, we'll have Hypocryptic, who's a Twitter influencer who's getting very heavily involved in the Star Atlas universe. As ever, you're always welcome to join us. Please like and subscribe. As you can see, Rome is a guild, and Metaverse Nomads is a group that collectively wants to get everybody involved in the discussion. It's not just about what's on our minds, and hopefully you'll check into us in the future when these types of issues come up, because you'll be sure that we'll be talking about them. Have a great day.
Are you ready for the next evolution in gaming? Blockchain games are here. Why just play when you can play to earn? Enter the Star Atlas Metaverse with Rome. Star Atlas is a grand strategy game of space exploration, territorial conquest, political domination, and so much more. Rome is a premier guild of the ONI Faction within Star Atlas. Rome is here to play and to earn. Want to take part in the action? Rome is accepting new citizens. Join the Rome Guild on Discord to learn more at gorome.io.